Mental health in America doesn't always have the best ring or connotation when you think of it. A lot of times in America, when people hear mental health, they run from the idea. They think that means there's something wrong with you or that you're crazy. Um, a lot of things that are very dismissive when the term mental health comes up. And actually, we don't think of mental health as being part of our health at all. Sometimes we don't see mental health can affect our physical health, spiritual health, social health. Um, Merriam-Webster's dictionary actually has a definition of health. And health is a condition of being sound in body, mind, or spirit, which means that mental health is a part of a holistic equation when it comes to, you know, everything running properly with our bodies. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to mental health. A lot of people believe that you have to be born with a mental illness. A lot of people believe that a mental illness can't happen to you. Whereas a mental illness is not a death sentence. A mental illness isn't always chronic. An illness is just that. It's something that comes and it can go. So when we talk about physical properties, when we talk about mental health, let's think of a Punnett square. A Punnett square has a large letter, which is allele, or a small letter for dominant or recessive traits. Now, when we look at physical properties, we see that maybe a trait may be expressed in a mother and a father. It may be expressed in the children afterwards. It's the same way with mental health and certain traits. It's called genetic vulnerabilities. So, we may not all see that we can have depression or see that we're prone to bipolar disorder, but through stress and other types of events, these things that are genetic vulnerabilities come to light. And people wind up having bouts of depression, bouts of manic depression, which is known as bipolar disorder, and other things. But all of these things are all right. None of these things mean that people can't live their lives normally. It also doesn't mean that they should be treated indifferently for everybody else. A lot of times when we hear mental health, people assume that people who have mental health issues are, going to do something, outrageous, or going to hurt somebody, or going to commit a crime. And it's actually really sad, the criminality that gets put with mental health. A lot of times you hear about a victim or hear about somebody shooting school, unfortunately, or committing another crime. The first question is, are they mentally ill? Whereas actually the opposite. Actually, a lot of people who are victims of mental health concerns are actually victimized in terms of being on the receiving end of crime because people are being discriminatory towards them or being abusive towards them because of their mental illness. So it's really, really important to understand your status. It's really, really important to pay attention to your mental health. Now, a lot of people don't realize that mental health is not always about going to a counselor. We could be paying attention to our mental health just by talking to one another, opening up, and knowing the signs for when somebody's at risk for a bad condition of mental health. So, if you see somebody's being a little bit more secluded, getting easily overwhelmed, things are happening and they're not able to make decisions like they normally are able to, not wanting to do things for themselves as they did before, those are all signs. And sometimes it just takes a conversation, sometimes it takes a hug, sometimes it takes a listening ear to actually brighten that person's day. Same things a lot of us want if something was going on with us and our mental health was at risk. But normalizing the situation is really, really important because who knows if that person's genetically vulnerable to alcoholism? Who knows that person's genetically vulnerable to depression? We don't know. We don't know what we're genetically vulnerable to until stress or other things in life put us in a position where that vulnerability is exposed and then ultimately expressed. So here are a couple of people in mind to show you how normal mental illness is. And that it's, once again, it's not a death sentence. It doesn't always last forever. It's just a period in life where our bodies cope with a certain situation and illustrate it in a certain way. A lot of people don't know Olympic gold winner Michael Phelps, the most successful swimmer in United States history in terms of swimming. He has ADHD. Demi Lovato, bipolar disorder. Steve Young, social anxiety. Leonardo DiCaprio, OCD. The Rock, one of the biggest superstars ever in WWE wrestling and now in movies, had suffered from depression for one time. Lady Gaga, depression. Prince Harry, himself, anxiety disorder. Now let's think about superheroes, Marvel movies, the ones that we look at. Well, obviously we know they're movies, but we know they work really hard to do those movies. You may have never guessed that Chris Evans, Captain America, has social anxiety. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, eccentric character that everybody loves and sees, anxiety. Kendrick Lamar, world-renowned rapper and artist. He's dealt with depression to the point of having suicidal thoughts. James Franco, addiction. Kid Cudi, depression. All these are people that people look at and see do amazing things and will continue to do amazing things. So that's proof that just because somebody's dealing with a mental illness, or if you're dealing with a mental illness, that it's normal. And life is still going to go on. Life is still going to be great. But it's good to promote it and see that it's important to pay attention to. But the first step of doing that is normalizing it. So I challenge everybody to look at their mental health, look at their friends' mental health, and don't put it in a box, in a place that can't be reached, so that it can turn into something that it doesn't have to turn into later. See how normal it is. See how paying attention to it and see how available it is in terms of getting help for everybody. It doesn't mean going to a counselor. Sometimes it just means being a good friend. Sometimes it means just investing in yourself, going out on a run, eating a good meal, working out. All those things are conscious thoughts of mental health. But if we just look at it as, well, mental health has to do with somebody who's gone crazy, then it enters a bad reputation, has a bad name. Pay attention to your mental health. Pay attention to the mental health of others. There's nothing wrong with it. It's normal. Everybody deals with things.